Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning into the Liberty Report. With me today is Daniel McAdams. And Daniel, good to see you.
How are you this morning, Dr. Paul?
I'm doing well and ready and raring to go and solve all the problems of the world.
Hopefully.
And, at least we'll call attention to some of the problems. And there's a new one today.
Big one.
As a consequence of bad policy. When I was thinking about the situation in Iran and the Persian Gulf, you know, we have a lot of responsibility and I think a lot of guilt for the problems that are there, but we've talked about that. But early this morning, I guess, in the Gulf, not too far from the Straits, two oil chemical ships were hit by torpedoes. I mean, significant, and the pictures on the internet are pretty clear. There's flames going. Nothing was sunk. But the immediate question is you know, Abe is in Iran right now, claiming that his position is working for peace, trying to get the United States and the Iranians to come together. Exactly how that'll work out and what the situation is, but he's there, and I think he actually made a warning that you know, it was to us, to the United States. You got to be careful. There could be an accident, and he said that yesterday. You know, and but this might not be an accident. This doesn't look like an accident. This looks deliberate, and of course the most important thing is find out the motive. You know, for this, who did it and what is the motive, or you have to get one and the other. And a lot of speculations, and we're not surprised that something happened, but our concerns over the years now has always been, you know, the Bolton strategy might prevail, you know, and they do believe in false flags and lying and doing these different things. And this is this could be a false flag. It could be somebody that's deliberately planning to antagonize and escalate the war. Maybe somebody's thinking, well, Trump says he wants to talk to him, and Abe's over there. He's talking to him, and they might not want that. Some people like agitation and conflict. Sometimes it's good for business. So we certainly don't know the answer to that, but it is pretty important. I mean, this is newsworthy, except I think most people in this country, and maybe even around the world, will go to sleep on it, but we'll see. I think we should be very alert to what's happening there.
Definitely, and this is the second attack in about a month. Remember, there were 4 vessels, I think they were at port or close to port in the UAE, that were damaged. And of course, immediately Bolton and the neocons blamed Iran. Iran denied responsibility. Bolton did say that he had proof that he's going to show us next week. I think that was a couple weeks ago, and we haven't seen that proof. So here we have a pretty brazen attack on 2 ships. You know, quite ironic. And in fact, I think we have a tweet that we can put up from the Iranian foreign minister who points out that he said, reported attacks on Japan-related tankers occurred while Prime Minister Shinzo Abe was meeting with Ayatollah Khamenei for extensive and friendly talks. Suspicious doesn't begin to describe what likely transpired this morning. Iran's proposed regional dialogue forum is imperative. So he points out what a lot of people are saying, hang on a second, why would Iran, right when there's an historic visit, because there hasn't been a Japanese prime minister visiting Iran since the revolution of 1979. Historic meaning, very important considering Japan's geostrategic importance. And all of a sudden, here goes Iran just hitting some Japanese ships. It is a real head scratcher on that.
Well, I hope the American people are more alert than they have been over several decades, because the lies that have been told to get us in war have been identified and people know about it. Most Americans know now that we were lied into the Iraq War. You know, even the establishment, you know, they don't deny this. So this is another thing that maybe the American people will be more alert to it. And then when you hear stories about Pompeo and others saying, well, there's times we have to tell lies. You know, the people can't handle the truth, and if it serves our interest, telling lies and doing the things necessary. But if it's provoking war, it's pretty serious stuff. I just can't see any benefit from that. Of course, I can't see any benefit from our being over there to begin with. But no, there's a great deal of concern for this, and just whether it'll escalate or not at this moment, it remains to be seen.
It does, and there was a great piece in Bloomberg, and I think it was written by an oil analyst, so not a political type, but it really took a good look, and lest we be accused of simply immediately refusing to believe Iran has a role in it, he starts out the article making a really good case, or making a case for why Iran would have done it. Okay, sanctions are crippling Iran. Trump's even said even more. They just put new sanctions on petrochemical industry, clearly crippling Iran. Sanctions, as you've long held, are acts of war. So here's what the Bloomberg piece starts out by saying, although it does say Iran has little to gain. However, okay, sending a message that transit through the Straits of Hormuz, through the Gulf, is not safe. It's an important message. About 20% of the world's oil travels through there. So Iran could be sending the message, hey, it's not safe if you continue messing with us. The other message is we won't go quietly in this face of increasing sanctions. We're going to stop taking it. We've taken it for the past year. When you got out of the JCPOA, we're not going to sit here and take it. And then when you add the new petrochemical sanctions, that might just be the trigger. Higher oil prices for the U.S. theoretically, although the markets, which I know you'll discuss later, aren't necessarily reflecting that. That could hurt the U.S. economy. So there's a case right there, and we'll discuss the case that they didn't, but that's the case that they may have done it.
Well, if you're looking for an aggressor, I believe our side are the aggressors. Iran has not been acting aggressive against the United States. They don't come over here and threaten us and do these things. But Rouhani and Khomeini made a statement, very similar. They said if Iran can't ship oil through the Persian Gulf and through the Straits, no one will.
Yeah.
And now that means they are very serious about it. And you would say, well, they're the aggressor. They're aggressors for doing this. But when you think about the burden that has been put on them, here they signed the treaty. Nobody proved they broke the treaty. The Europeans want the treaty, and yet we're the ones that broke it. And we continue to badger them in pretending that we're still in this agreement and tell, oh, well, look, we're complaining because the Iranians are threatened to break the treaty. Of course, we're the ones that ruined it. Yeah. So this is, I think, very serious. I don't think they're bluffing, but let's hope there's a response to say they're not bluffing. Maybe we ought to be careful, because this could get way out of hand. But right now, I still think it's in flux, and we don't know what will happen. I don't think we're going to see, a few more explosions today or tomorrow. At least I hope not. Yeah. But one day, that's what will happen to it, and then it'll be clear who did what. But right now, there certainly makes no sense and no evidence that Iran would do this. It's just would be crazy to think they would. They know what's in their best interest, and that isn't it. And so I think that it will be difficult to really sort this out, but we will need some more information. Nobody's claiming, oh, we did it, yeah. We want the record for this. The Al-Qaeda said they're not bragging that they did it. So it's up for grabs. But I thought the one thing interesting is this, that our base there, and one of the ships was owned by Japan.
Yeah.
I mean, that just seems to be over the top, yeah. Well, that's more evidence why Iran, why would they have them there and do some talking? Because I think their interest is just trying to get rid of sanctions. And obviously Japan would like to get rid of the sanctions because they used to import a lot. Now they're not allowed.
Yeah.
In the same way with the Europeans. Of course, we talk about this. Why won't the Europeans, stand up and say, hey, look, we have a right to get oil from Iran. And you guys, you Americans come along and say, oh, no, you can't buy a drop of oil, not one single drop of oil from Iran, and we're not going to allow that to happen. Well, push may just come to shove, and a lot more problems will exist than these two tankers being hit.
Yeah, definitely. And back to the Bloomberg piece making the point about who else it might be. They made a couple of points about Iran, but he says another group benefits big time. He didn't use that word, but I put it in there. The people who want to see the U.S. step up its campaign against Iran to move the economic war into a military war, and we know who those people are, the neocons. And the sanctions are not working according to how the neocons wanted them to work. They wanted the Iranians to roll over, beg, play dead, do whatever we wanted. That's not happening. At the same time, this past few weeks is the closest the neocons have come to getting their war on Iran, and I would say at least a decade, if you remember, right around the time of the Gulf War, so more than a decade. I think they're as close as they've come, and I think there's certainly, and then Bloomberg agrees that there's a very good case to be made for this to be some sort of a false flag attack. And I would actually even go further, and I would wonder if this is not a neocon coup or move against Trump. If just think about a couple of things. So Abe's in Iran with Trump's blessing. Abe called Trump before he went. They talked about things. We don't know exactly what they said, but obviously he had Trump's blessing to go there and serve as some kind of intermediary. When he was there, he said, "Hey, Iran, don't break the agreement. Don't start doing nukes. You know, just keep it cool." Trump himself said, "Let's start negotiating. Let's start negotiating." So Trump is moving away from war, at least according to his rhetoric. And actually, this was a little reported on, but Iran freed a U.S. resident that it was holding on espionage charges. That may have been a goodwill gesture. So things are kind of breaking loose a little bit, maybe negotiations, and all of a sudden, here you go.
You know, when this incident became known worldwide, there were some dire predictions. You know, this is it. This is the big one, and there will be all kinds of problems. But you know, I generally like to look at the economic factors after an event like this, and they really haven't been that outstanding. I saw some headlines that sort of, holy man, you know, the whole thing's going to blow up, you know, economically. But you know, the stock market is in the doldrums. It neither shot high or crashed. The dollar remained stable. It didn't serve as a haven. No people were panicking into the dollar. Gold made its usual jump, like they've been doing for the last month or so, a couple bucks. So there's no real panic. The price of oil did, you know, go up, but I think at the worst it was up 5%, went up a couple of dollars and dropped back. Who knows where it is now? But you know, the people in those markets are pretty good at immediately making their evaluation. So the immediate evaluation was, this is not the big one, you know. But that could change tomorrow. It could change today, or it might settle down. But the whole issue is not going to settle down. We've created this issue, and I sometimes stop and think, well, what would be happening in the Middle East if we just weren't there? Wouldn't that be a fascinating thing? Just leave and not have been there. Even all the way back, well, you'd have to go back to 53 in order to do this. Cancel out 53, then we wouldn't have had 89, you know, and all that stuff, and this ongoing thing. And this hatred wouldn't exist. And how long can we you know, keep this policy of you know, irrational type of obsession with them? And they say, well, they're bad people. Yeah, the Soviets were pretty bad people too, and the Chinese have been bad people. There's been a lot of bad people around, but sometimes we do deals with them. If you want to put up the case for a few people who oversteps the bound of humanity and common sense and decency, we might look at some of our allies like the Saudis. You know, we don't say, well, they mistreat their people, you know, and over there may be some decapitations for what we consider not quite being done. So this would be a neat thing to have happened, but it's not going to be there. But if people would say, that would be a better world if we had stayed out of there. So the only substitute for that is, well, if you think it would have been
Washington, they wouldn't dare do it. Well, we have a video here of Bolton in his own name. He's talking to our friend the judge, where he's saying just that. Hey, no problem, I'll lie us into war. If we can cue that up and play those first 30 seconds, it's
revealed. Now, I want to make the case for secrecy in government when it comes to the conduct of national security affairs, and possibly for deception where that's appropriate. You know, Winston Churchill said during World War II that in wartime, truth is so important it should be surrounded by a bodyguard of lies.
Do you really believe that?
Absolutely.
You would lie in order to preserve the truth?
If I had to say something I knew was false to protect American national security, I would do it. I don't think we're off.
A thought comes to my mind listening to this is the only time they tell the truth is when they admit they lie. Yeah. Which is a bit of irony.
That's great.
That really leads to confusion, doesn't it?
That's great. That's perfect. That goes with Pompeo when he was
Pompeo
at A&M.
admitted the truth.
Yeah.
And that's when we'll believe him.
But here's the neocon line on this. We saw Bolton, this was a little while ago, saying, hey, no problem, all lies, no big deal. Here's Mark Dubowitz. He's with one of the super pro-war think tanks, Foundation for Defense of Democracy, super close to the far right in Israel. Here's what he tweeted out this morning. If the Islamic Republic hit a Japanese tanker while Abe was in Tehran, that just tells you all you need to know about how much the regime in Iran resembles the North Korean regime. Outrageously aggressive, reckless, and provocative. But if you actually analyze Iran's behavior over the past year, it's been anything but that. They've been actually extremely cautious, carefully cultivating the EU as the U.S. pulls out of the JCPOA, carefully cultivating, sticking to the JCPOA even though the U.S. unilaterally pulled out, and that would have left some loopholes for them to continue doing things. They didn't do it. No radical actions over the year. So if anything, Dubowitz is here being deceptive himself. Well, it's time to close the show out. Iran is a big topic. It's going to continue to be a big topic. And guess what? It's going to be a big topic in August when we go to D.C. to have our big conference. We're going to talk Iran. Let's hope to God we're not in war with Iran by then, but it'll still be a huge topic. Early bird tickets on sale today, on sale for a couple more weeks to save some money. RonPaulInstitute.org/conference. We're bringing the Ron Paul Liberty Report and the whole circus into town, so we hope to see you there.
Well, I have an old-fashioned suggestion that I've made in the past. The Americans aren't best known for soccer, but we're doing better. I imagine in the Middle East, even Iran probably has a soccer team. So why don't we get together and play a little soccer? This would be a lot better than this. So we started off with China by playing ping pong, and things moved in a positive way. But unfortunately, I guess we're not going to have our way to, institute our foreign policy of non-intervention. But believe me, if nobody talks about it and if nobody understands it, it will never happen, and we won't even move in that direction. I don't happen to work on this subject because I think that tomorrow we're going to have different leadership and we're going to wave a wand, and all of a sudden the American people are going to accept it, and all the special interests are going to roll over. The military-industrial complex is going to be happy. But I believe firmly that you have to speak very clearly on what the goals are in a free society, trying to explain exactly what the responsibilities are for the government. What should the role be? And in foreign policy, obviously we have a strong belief that we have a moral obligation that we should defend our country if we're attacked. But we have no moral obligation to start a war, to go on and lie us into war, and getting into wars that are unnecessary. And if you look at our history, it's not very good about how we get involved. So the principle of non-interventionism is something that, even though we don't think tomorrow they're going to accept it, just moving in that direction, just reduce the number of times we get involved and be more cautious would make a lot of sense. And I still think that in spite of the problems with trying to figure out the consistency of our foreign policy today, I still think that the president has some instincts that are beneficial and that he could be motivated to move in a direction that we like. But I hope that's just not wishful thinking. But right now, I would say so far, we have, even though we're moving troops around and we don't like where the troops are going, we haven't been sending the tanks and the bombs and all the things and putting troops on the ground and having a lot of body bags coming back. But the policy is still very interventionist, and what we need to do is pick the good parts of what's happening today and emphasize the benefits of that and move away from our aggressive foreign policy, especially at this moment with Iran. That is one thing that we could do to move us in the direction of peace and prosperity. I want to thank everybody for tuning in today to the Liberty Report. Please come back soon.